Ms. Comey, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state and spell the first name under which you are currently testifying?
Jane, Jane.
Good afternoon, Jane.
Good afternoon.
Have you asked to testify here today under a pseudonym to protect your privacy?
Yes.
At this time, I would like to pull up what was just admitted in evidence as Government Exhibit 3R121, just for the jury and the parties and not for the public, as it is a sealed exhibit, please. Jane, do you recognize this?
Yes,
I think we lost it. Do you see that in front of you?
I do.
What is it?
My driver's license?
Without saying it out loud, is the last name next to the line LN your true last name?
Yes.
And is the first and middle name next to FN your true first and middle name?
Yes.
And is the address below that your true address?
Yes.
Do you currently live at that address?
I do.
How long have you lived there?
About 3 years now.
When did you move in there?
April 2022.
Are you estimating?
Yes.
And that date of birth there, is that your true date of birth?
Yes.
We can take that down. Thank you very much, Ms. Becker. I'd like to now please pull up what is not in evidence. So just for the witness, Government Exhibit 2A402, please. Jane, do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is it?
A photo of myself?
Your Honor, the government offers this exhibit in evidence.
All right, it will be admitted.
Could we please just show that to the jury?
Okay?
Jane, generally, where did you grow up?
In California.
We can take that down. Thank you, Ms. Becker. Your Honor, I failed to note that prior exhibit I'm offering under seal, given that it shows the likeness of Jane.
Understood.
Thank you, Your Honor. How far did you go in school, Jane?
I did about half a semester, so in junior college.
What kind of work did you do after leaving junior college?
I worked in restaurants. I was modeling, various modeling jobs.
I'd like to direct your attention now to the period between 2021 and 2024. Who, if anyone, were you in a relationship with over those years?
Sean Combs.
Ms. Becker, would you please pull up what is in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A101? Jane, do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Yes.
Who is that?
Sean Combs.
Do you know him by any other names?
Yes.
What names did you call him when you were in a relationship with him?
Sean, Baby, Ernie, Snookums.
Why did you call him Ernie?
Because that was our nickname for one another.
So who were you?
Bert.
And who was he?
Ernie.
Like from Sesame Street?
Yes.
We can take that down, thank you. How did you first meet Sean?
I first met Sean on a girls' trip to Miami.
And about what year was that?
Late 2020.
How did that girls' trip to Miami lead you to meeting Sean?
At the time, Sean was romantically involved with one of my girlfriends.
And was that girlfriend one of the girls who you went on this trip with to Miami?
Yes.
Who paid for that girls' trip you took?
Sean.
Where were you all staying?
In Miami.
And how did you first meet Sean on that girls' trip?
She had invited us all over for dinner and like a thing at night, and I remember we all went over there as a group to his residence in Miami.
What residence is that?
The one on Star Island.
Do you remember the address by any chance?
2 Star Island.
Before going to 2 Star Island in 2020, had you met Sean in passing before?
I had, yes.
About how long before 2020 had you met Sean in passing?
I would say 5 years prior.
And at what type of event did you meet Sean in passing?
It was like a Father's Day celebration.
And were there a lot of people there?
There were.
Other than that meeting in passing, a Father's Day celebration, had you had any other in-person interactions with Sean before that Miami trip in 2020?
No.
How long were you in Miami during that 2020 trip?
We were there for about 5 days.
And on how many of those days did you see Sean?
About 3 or so.
What do you remember doing with Sean and your girlfriends on the first day when you saw him?
I remember it was at night. We went over there and I just saw Sean, and he was really charming, really nice. And I was always drawn to him, like pretty instantly. And he was really hospitable, really sweet, really friendly. We had a nice night together.
You said that night started out at 2 Star, is that right?
Yes.
Where did you all go from 2 Star?
We all went on a yacht.
What happened on the yacht?
We were just having drinks, partying, being friendly. There was a little bit of flirting going on, just a nice night altogether,
And when you say a little bit of flirting, between who?
between Sean and I.
And you said partying. Were you using drugs that night?
No.
What, if any, private conversations did you have with Sean on that yacht?
At one point, I had to use the restroom, and he happened to be there as well. And that's when we bumped into each other, and he was like, take down my number. Let me get your number. And we exchanged numbers then, and that's when we decided we should have a nickname. And he said Bert, and I said Ernie. And then, yeah,
And so did you exchange phone numbers?
yes.
And after that, were you in contact over the phone?
He would text message, yes, we would. We would text message, yes.
During that same trip to Miami, what, if any, drugs do you remember seeing?
I remember seeing a pink powder substance.
And on which day, if you can remember, do you remember seeing those drugs?
That first night.
What do you remember about that?
I remember after the yacht, we all went to the pool, and one of the girls had requested that she wanted some drugs. And I guess while we were in the pool,
I don't want you to guess, so one of your girlfriends requested drugs, and how did Sean respond?
he said, okay,
And then what did you see happen a little while later?
that somebody came to bring the drugs.
Where did you go with Sean at that point?
At the studio and inside the property at 2-Star?
Did you and Sean go alone to the studio?
Yes.
What did you see happen in the studio?
I saw this man pull out this pink powder.
And what, if anything, did that man say?
Well, I remember I was like, is this safe? And I remember both of them looking at me, like, kind of just gave me just like a look. Yeah, it's the best.
Who did you see that man give the pink powder to?
Sean.
And what did you see Sean do with it?
Just take it to the girl, and I believe he used it as well.
And he took it back to the pool?
Around us, yes.
And gave it to one of your girlfriends?
Yes.
And what do you remember happening after that?
I remember my girlfriend was pretty upset. I think she assumed that there was something going on with Sean and I at that moment, and we then left the party pretty abruptly.
You said your girlfriend was upset. Is that the girlfriend who was in the relationship with Sean?
Yes.
What other activities do you remember doing with your girlfriends and Sean on that first trip?
I remember the next day we just had a pool party and just hosted a pool party just for us. And we were just having drinks and having lunch by the pool. It was a nice day.
And then what do you remember from your last stay in Miami?
I remember he invited us all over for a movie night, and we went in the theater and all watching a movie.
Where was the theater?
Inside of his residence.
What do you remember happening while you were watching the movie with Sean and your girlfriends?
I remember he texted me, and he was like, "Are you okay? I'd like to take you out." And I was just saying to him that it just felt a little complicated in the moment, but like, yeah, we'll be in touch.
So you were texting during the movie.
Yes.
And was the girlfriend of yours who was seeing Sean in a relationship with him there as well?
Yes.
After that movie night, where did you go?
I went back home
And at the time, where were you living generally?
on the East Coast.
And after that trip, how, if at all, did you remain in contact with Sean?
Just through text messages, phone calls.
And what do you remember about those communications in the weeks after that first Miami trip in 2020?
I remember he was flirtatious. He was inviting me to Miami, like that generally.
Ms. Becker, could we please pull up what is in evidence as Government Exhibit A906? And could you please pull up pages 1 and 2 side by side? Jane, do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is this?
It's a text message between myself and Sean.
Could you please tell us the very first text that you sent to Sean?
Bert.
And how did he respond?
Ernie.
And then can we go to the next page and look at what Sean sent you after that? What did he send you after that?
He says, "Call me Ernie. How are you?"
What are the dates of these messages?
November 30th, 2020.
And were the first two November 29th, 2020?
Yes.
Over the course of your texting relationship and communications after that Miami trip, who pursued whom?
Sean.
Sean pursued who?
Me.
And what was Sean asking you to do over those messages and phone calls?
He was just asking me if he could see me, if I would be interested to come to Miami.
And at first, how did you respond?
At first, I was a little hesitant.
Why were you hesitant at first?
Because I was still being considerate of my girlfriend who still had feelings for him. And yeah,
What, if anything, changed?
my girlfriend ended up getting engaged and she moved overseas and became a fiance. And so I felt that she was okay and that I could potentially entertain this Sean thing.
And about how long after that Miami trip in November of 2020 did your girlfriend get engaged to someone else?
Fairly quickly.
So she was seeing her soon-to-be fiance at the same time she was seeing Sean?
Yes.
And after she moved overseas, how did you feel about possibly seeing Sean?
I felt more open to it.
After that, what did you discuss with Sean?
I told him I would actually be in Miami already for an event and I would like to see him.
So when were you going to Miami already for an event?
Late January of 2021.
And did you in fact go to Miami in January of 2021?
I did.
And what did you and Sean agree to do when you went down to Miami then?
He asked if he could get me a hotel for my stay, and I said sure, and that we would meet.
What do you remember about the first time you saw Sean on that January 2021 trip?
I remember when I first saw Sean, he walks in the door of the hotel room, and he was just like larger than life. He had a very big personality, super charming, very, very passionate, even just in how he speaks, and just overall really charming. And he was just immediately immersed in conversation with me.
Where did you spend that first date with Sean?
We spent it at the Intercontinental Hotel in a room. We had dinner there on the balcony.
And how long did your first date with Sean end up lasting?
I would say 5 days.
I want to focus on the beginning of that first date. At the beginning of that first date, what, if any, past relationships did you discuss with Sean?
I was very open with him that I had previously dated somebody who he was really close to, and that I understood that my child's father and him had dislikes with one another, and he was very, very vocal that he didn't care, not about my past girlfriend, not about my child's father, and then the only thing maybe he had concerns about was the person that he was really close to.
I want to make sure we understand that. So first you said you'd been in a relationship with someone who was really close to Sean. Is that right?
Yes.
How long before this first date in 2021 had that relationship with someone Sean was close to ended?
I would say 2015.
Are you estimating?
Yes.
And then you mentioned that your child's father was someone who did not get along with Sean. Is that right?
Yes.
And how many children do you have?
1.
And did you and Sean talk about those two relationships on your first date?
Yes.
And generally, what did Sean say about them?
Generally, he just said that he didn't mind and he was okay. It didn't matter.
What, if any, past relationships with Sean did you talk about during that first date?
Just the relationship with my girlfriend at the time.
And what did you discuss about that?
That he just said that that was really more like a friendship more than anything, that it wasn't really as romantic as maybe she had assumed it was.
And so after you cleared the air about your past relationships, what happened on the rest of that first night with Sean?
We made lots of love. I remember it was just amazing. And I remember it was like morning time, and then we just decided to go for a walk on the beach.
So where did you see the sunrise that morning?
On the balcony.
With whom?
Sean.
And then after that, what did you two do for the rest of your trip to Miami?
After that, we went on a proper date night. We went to a restaurant, we got dressed up, and we had a more mellow, like one-on-one sitting and properly dating date night.
And then did you spend the next couple days together too?
Yes.
Over that first date, what kinds of things did you and Sean talk about?
We were just getting to know one another,
When you left Miami after that trip in January of 2021, how did you feel about Sean?
I was pretty head over heels for Sean.
After you left Miami in January 2021, how did you and Sean keep communicating?
Over text, FaceTime, phone calls.
And after that January 2021 trip, what, if any, trips did you take in February of 2021?
We went to Turks and Caicos and also the Bahamas.
Who's we?
Sean and I.
How did you end up on that trip?
I told him that my birthday was coming up, and he was super excited and said we should go on an island getaway. And I was super excited as well because I had never been to Turks. And so he took me there, and it was amazing.
How did you get to Turks?
I flew to Miami first, and then we took his plane to Turks.
When you say his plane, what are you referencing?
I'm referencing Sean's private jet.
And who do you remember going to Turks with you on that trip?
I remember his assistant KK was there, the chef, the butler, photographer. At some point, there was a barber.
Ms. Becker, would you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A301? Do you recognize the person in that photograph?
I do.
Who is that?
KK,
Do you know her full name?
Christina Coram.
And do you know what her role was for Sean?
She was his chief of staff and main assistant.
We can take that down. Thank you, Ms. Becker. How long did you stay in Turks on that trip in February 2021?
I would say we stayed about 9 days in Turks and then 6 days in the Bahamas.
So you went from Turks to the Bahamas.
Yes.
What do you remember from the time you spent in Turks in February 2021?
I remember so many lovely things. It was just really us, and so we just had a lot of connection and a lot of time together. And you would assume just really passionate about one another, lots of attraction. It was very lust-filled.
Were you getting a lot of alone time with Sean?
Yes.
Can we please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit E163? Before we play this video, can you tell us if you recognize this, Jane?
Yes. This is the villa that we stayed in at Turks.
And do you know who took this video?
Myself.
We can go ahead and play this video, please. Who did we see at the end of this video?
Sean.
And where are you? What are we seeing in this video?
We are at the villa pool, and I'm just taking a video of the ambiance and Sean and just the weather and the vibe.
And you said the villa. Had Sean rented out a whole villa just for you two for your trip?
Yes, he did.
We can take that down, thank you, Ms. Becker. During your trip to Turks, what, if anything, did you tell Sean about your own life and personal circumstances?
I was just very open about just that I was a single mother, and for work, I was just on social media. I would say I would call myself a content creator, influencer, and that's pretty much it.
So what kind of work were you doing at this time?
I was advertising brands on my social media.
During that same trip, what, if any, gifts do you remember Sean giving you?
I remember it was actually when I first met him in Miami, that first trip. He had given me a love bracelet that said LOVE on it. So I got that pretty early on. And at the end of the trip, I do remember, he said that he was going to send me some money and that he knew that he had taken me out for many days. And I really appreciated that gesture because it was many days away.
So at what point did Sean offer to send you money?
At the very end of the trip.
The trip to where?
Turks.
And had you asked him for money?
No.
How much money did he tell you he would send you?
$10,000.
And what did he say when he told you he was sending you $10,000?
Just to have it because he knew I was away for a while and just here.
So during that trip, were you able to do any work you would normally do?
No.
During that same Turks trip, what, if any, drugs did you use?
Ecstasy.
Now, before that trip, had you used drugs?
Yes.
How many times had you used drugs in your life before that trip to Turks?
Twice.
What drugs had you used twice?
Ecstasy.
And on what occasions had you used ecstasy twice?
On New Year's Eve, on 2 occasions.
And about how long before this 2021 trip was that?
I would say 2014 and 2015, something like that.
Are you estimating?
Yes.
Whose idea was it for you to use ecstasy in Turks?
Sean's.
And how many times did Sean suggest you take ecstasy at Turks?
Just at various points in the trip.
So about how many times do you remember Sean giving you ecstasy to use in Turks?
I would say maybe 10 times.
And you said you were there for about 9 days?
Yes, in Turks.
How did drugs first come up with Sean?
I remember we were inside the pool and we were drinking and just having a good time. And he opens his hand with a pill and he's like, here, take this. It would be just more fun or something like that. And so I ended up taking the whole thing.
What happened after you took the whole pill Sean handed to you?
I was walking down the beach with him and then it just hit me. And I just remember I fell to the ground and I started grabbing the sand and throwing the sand. And my body was just almost convulsing. And I think I was screaming a little.
What do you remember after you fell to the sand?
I remember that his butler and KK tried to help me, and they were trying to figure out what was wrong or what they could do. And then they eventually put me in the shower, like a lukewarm shower, just to kind of calm my senses.
How did you feel after the shower?
It started to subside after that.
And about how long after that? Did you take another ecstasy pill?
Throughout the trip, I remember every other day we would take it. And this time, I would just take it in really small pieces.
Who decided how big a dose of ecstasy you would get?
Sean.
And who gave you all the ecstasy you took on that trip?
Sean.
When you took the smaller dose of ecstasy from Sean, how did that smaller dose make you feel?
It made me feel relaxed, euphoric, sexual. It just enhanced touch and smell and made me feel even more loving and flirtatious with him.
About how long did those effects last each time you took ecstasy from Sean?
I feel like they could last about 12 hours or so.
And then what was the experience like after those 12 hours?
I would say either we would keep going or we would take something to just relax and then go to bed.
So when you say we would keep going, does that mean take more ecstasy?
Yes.
Could you describe the experience of coming down from ecstasy?
Yes. In my first experience when I was with Sean, it was like your mind was kind of readjusting to the environment, like it was coming down from a high, and you're just tired and want to go to sleep.
When you went to the Bahamas with Sean, did you continue using drugs with him?
Yes.
What drugs?
Ecstasy.
Who gave you the ecstasy?
Sean.
About how much ecstasy or how many times you remember Sean giving you ecstasy on that trip?
I would say just 2 more times then.
And at the time of the trip, what money did Sean ultimately send you?
He sent me a wire for $10,000.
And did he send that to your bank account?
Yes.
How much was the $10,000 to you at that time in your life?
It was a lot of money for me.
After the end of that trip, how did you feel about Sean?
I was even deeper in my feelings for Sean. I want to say we even started using the L word, and I was really deep in it. I really fell head over heels for him.
What was your understanding of the status of your relationship with Sean at the end of that trip?
He has made it really clear to me that he really likes me, but that he was seeing multiple women.
So he was open about that with you?
Yes,
And how did you react to hearing that?
I was okay with it
Why were you okay with it?
because I liked him, and so I was okay with it.
Did you have the sense that you had the option of a monogamous relationship with him?
No, I didn't have that sense.
So what was your understanding of whether Sean would be seeing other people romantically while you were in a relationship with him?
I understood that on his end, it was an open relationship.
And what was your understanding of whether you should see other people while you were in a relationship with Sean?
In my heart, I just wanted to see Sean. So I was monogamous
How long did your dating relationship with Sean last?
until his arrest.
Do you know when he was arrested?
I think it was August of 2024.
Are you estimating?
Yes.
But did your relationship last through 2024?
Yes.
At some points during the time period between 2021 and 2024, did you and Sean take any breaks from your relationship?
Yes.
How many do you remember?
I think maybe 2.
About when was the first one?
I can't remember at the moment.
Okay. And was the first one short?
Yes.
Was the second one longer?
Yes.
About when was the second one?
October of 2023.
And how long were you on a break from Sean starting from October 2023?
About 4 months.
When did you get back together with Sean after you took that break in October 2023?
February 2023. Or no, I'm sorry. February 2024.
Okay, so you were on a break in your mind from October 2023 through February 2024?
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk more about that later, okay? Over the years you were with him, how public was your relationship with Sean?
It was private.
And what, if anything, did Sean say to you about keeping your relationship out of the public eye?
I think we just both agreed and knew that we would have to keep it private.
So did you post about him on your social media accounts?
Maybe just one time. But other than that, no.
Over the course of your relationship with Sean, Where were you living?
I was living in sometimes some portion of it in the East Coast and the majority of it in the West Coast in California.
When did you move from the East Coast to California?
June 2021.
And what city did you move to in California?
Los Angeles.
What, if anything, did Sean give you to help you move to Los Angeles?
He gave me money for my move. He gave me $6,000 for a moving truck.
I want to focus now on your relationship between the end of the Turks trip in February of 2021 and May of 2021, okay?
Okay.
Over those approximately 3 months, how often did you see Sean in person?
I would say every other week or so.
And how would you see him in person every other week, or?
So he would fly me to him.
You say he would fly you to him? Would he pay for you to fly?
Yes.
Commercially?
Yes.
And to what city did you fly to see him?
I would fly to Miami.
During that same time, in between seeing him in person, how did you communicate with Sean?
Through text, phone call, FaceTime.
Over those 3 months, what, if anything, do you remember Sean giving you?
As far as
What, if any, money do you remember him giving you?
I just remember he was sweet. He would give me money here and there,
In cash or wires?
a mix of both,
And what would he say when he gave you money?
just because.
Over those approximately 3 months, between February and May of 2021, how often did you use drugs?
Every time I saw him.
Every time you saw who?
Sean.
And who gave you the drugs you used every time you saw Sean?
Sean.
What drugs did Sean give you during that period?
Ecstasy, Molly. Sometimes there was cocaine. Sometimes there was something called K, which was ketamine.
I want to talk about each of those. You've already talked about ecstasy. Could you explain how Molly made you feel when you took it?
Molly, I would say, just kind of enhanced the same feelings as ecstasy. It just made you sexual and promiscuous and like horny and yeah.
And now you mentioned cocaine. How did you feel when you took cocaine?
It wasn't often I used this drug, but when I did, I would just feel really alert and awake.
And then you mentioned K, ketamine.
Yes.
How did you feel when you took that?
The one time that I did it, I felt not so good on it. It's more of a like a hallucinogen, like the floor was coming down and the walls were, it was just kind of weird.
Now, focusing again on those 3 months between February and May of 2021, in what context did Sean give you drugs?
Whenever we would start having sex,
During that same period, what did you learn about how Sean preferred to have sex?
I learned so many things. I learned how he liked to have pornography playing. I learned how he preferred me to dress. And I just learned the things that he liked sexually.
How did Sean tell you he preferred you to dress?
He preferred me to dress in provocative lingerie and really high, like, stripper shoes.
And about how long did he want you to be in these outfits while you were taking drugs?
The whole time.
And how long would that last usually?
At first, it would be like 12 to 24 hours.
And what, if any, substances did Sean want you to use on your own body during sex?
Baby oil.
And what did Sean tell you to do with it?
To just have it all over my body and his.
In what types of rooms between February and May of 2021 would you have this kind of sex with Sean?
At his residence, in his bedroom.
And how was his bedroom lit when you would have these interactions?
We would have red lights on.
Now, during those first 3 months, how did you feel about these long-lasting sexual sessions with Sean?
I loved them. I really love my partner. And I was just making love with my partner like the whole time, and lots of affection and kisses and love making. And it was really wonderful. I had a really nice,
How intense did your relationship feel during these early phases?
it felt really intense.
Can you explain that?
I felt like Sean was really passionate, and he brought out a lot of passion out of me too. And the way he would compliment me and be so into me and just really like enjoying one another, like it made me feel really good inside.
So over those 3 months between February and May of 2021, how did you feel about Sean?
I loved him very much.
I want to talk now about May of 2021. What do you remember happening in your relationship with Sean in May of 2021?
I remember that just when we would watch pornography, We just started to have a lot more fantasy conversation.
Do you need to take a break, Jane?
No,
Who initiated the fantasy conversation you're describing?
Sean.
And can you explain to us how he initiated that conversation?
We would just search specific things on these websites. And just in the middle of being high, he just really wanted me to fantasize or kind of really talk about other men and this type of role play about other men.
You mentioned you would search on these websites. Are you talking about pornography websites?
Yes.
So you would be watching pornography.
Yes.
And you said that he would want you to talk about other men. What did he tell you he wanted you to say about other men?
It was more like a question. Do you like what you see there? Do you like that? Do you want that? Can you imagine that? Pretend that's here and I'm that person.
Now, in May of 2025, is there a particular night when you remember him introducing this fantasy talk?
Yes.
At the point he brought it up,
Objection to the time period.
May of 2021, I'm so sorry. In May of 2021, was there a time when Sean initiated this fantasy talk?
Yes.
And at that point, when you referenced it, where were you?
We were in his bedroom watching pornography.
In what city?
Miami.
And how long had you been awake at that point?
Around, I would say, 12 or 15 hours into the night, from the evening until the morning.
So you'd been awake the whole day prior to?
Yes.
So you've been awake for a total of about 24 hours?
Yes.
And what, if any, drugs had you been using for the last 12 to 15 hours?
A mix of ecstasy and Molly.
And what had you and Sean been doing for the last 12 and 15 hours?
Having sex.
In the way you described?
Yes.
So then what did Sean start to say to you after you had been doing that for 12 to 15 hours?
He started saying I can make this fantasy a reality. If you'd like to have that happen, I can make it happen.
And how did you react?
I said okay.
Why did you say okay?
Because it seemed like he wanted that and it was turning him on and I was really into my partner and I said okay.
Now, when you said okay, did you think that was going to happen that night?
No.
When you said okay, did you want to be having sex with someone other than Sean?
No.
So what did you think you were doing when you said okay to him?
Playing into the fantasy?
So did you think this was just a fantasy?
Yes.
How did Sean respond when you said okay?
I remember I went to the restroom and when I came back out, Sean was in a robe and staring at his phone, really seriously.
How, if at all, had his demeanor changed?
He just looked really serious in his phone.
And what did Sean say to you when you came out of the bathroom?
He said we can make that happen tonight.
How did you react when Sean told you we can make that happen tonight?
I was like, tonight? Okay. I was taken back, a bit surprised, but okay.
Why did you say okay?
Because my partner was excited and it was already happening and this was something we were going to do.
Were you still high at this point?
Yes.
What do you remember happening next?
I remember being in a hotel room.
Do you remember how quickly you got to that hotel room after you saw Sean on his phone?
Just within a couple hours.
Do you remember what hotel you went to?
A hotel in Miami.
And when you got to that hotel room, a couple of hours after Sean had been on his phone, what did you see in the hotel room?
I saw the assistants setting up this room. There was beverages, the lights were already red. There was just kind of like a bustle of getting this room ready.
Do you remember what assistants were setting up the room?
I don't.
After the assistants set up the room, who was left in the room?
It was me and Sean in the bedroom talking.
And what did Sean say to you in the bedroom?
He just told me that there's somebody coming and just to relax and that this would be something fun. And he knows the guy and he's a really nice guy. And I was just super nervous and just listening to him.
When Sean said that he knows the guy, what guy did you understand Sean was referring to?
I figured he was referencing to this fantasy guy that was coming.
So what did you understand Sean was telling you was about to happen?
That sexual things were going to start happening.
Between who?
Myself and this guy.
Had you met this guy before?
No.
Did you even know his name at this point?
No.
And did Sean tell you where he knew this guy from?
No.
But he did tell you he already knew this guy.
Yes.
What do you remember happening next?
I remember I was in the room by myself for a little bit, and he walks out and greets the guy, and I can hear them talking, and I eventually...
Let me just pause you and ask you. I forgot to ask you. What kind of hotel room? Was this a regular room or a suite?
A suite.
See, you said he walked out. Who walked out of the bedroom?
Sean.
And then who did you hear Sean talking with?
The man.
Another guy?
Yes.
And then after you heard those, Sean and this other man talking, what happened next?
He called me to come outside.
Who called you to come outside?
Sean.
At this point, what were you wearing?
I was wearing lingerie under a robe.
And what shoes were you wearing?
I was wearing the big stripper heels.
And who had picked out your outfit and your heels?
Myself and Sean.
Together?
Yes.
And when Sean called you into the other room, what did you do?
I said hello to everyone.
And who did you see with Sean when you walked into the living room of that hotel suite?
I saw Dawn.
Who is Dawn?
Dawn is one of the entertainers.
Ms. Becker, would you please pull up what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 2A614 just for the witness and the parties? Jane, do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Yes.
Who is that?
Dawn.
Is that the same Dawn you just told us you met in May of 2021?
Yes.
Your Honor, the government offers this in evidence.
No objection.
All right, go. A614 will be admitted.
May we please publish that to the jury? Do you know Dawn's last name?
I don't.
We can take that down, thank you. Now, that night when you first met Dawn, what did Sean tell you about how Sean knew Dawn?
Not much, really. I could just feel a sense that they had known each other and that he had some familiarity. But he didn't really specify exactly how they knew each other.
At a later time, did Sean tell you how he knew Dawn?
Yes.
What did Sean tell you about how he knew Dawn?
That he was from Cowboys and Angels.
What's Cowboys and Angels?
It's an escort website.
Who first told you about Cowboys and Angels?
Sean.
No, at the time you met Dawn in this hotel room, were the drugs you had taken that night still affecting you?
Yes.
So how did you feel?
I was high.
Can you tell us what happened after you first walked into the room, into the living room where Dawn and Sean were?
I remember I was just sitting on the couch with my robe on, and Sean was just telling me to relax and that it was okay, and same with Dawn.
How was your body positioned as Sean was telling you to relax?
My legs were crossed. My arms were crossed. I had the robe on. I was nervous.
What happened next?
Sean was like, just stand up. And so I stood up and I started to just kind of dance, just to kind of get my nerves away.
Did you take off the robe?
Yes.
Who suggested you take off your robe?
I think it was just a mix of me and Sean.
While you started dancing, what did you see Dawn do?
Getting turned on.
What was Dawn wearing at this point?
Shorts.
What kind of shorts?
I think his underwear.
What do you remember happening next?
I remember Dawn came closer to me and started touching me, touching my leg, and just trying to make me feel comfortable. And I started touching him and just trying to, I don't know.
What was Sean doing while you and Dawn started touching each other?
He was watching and touching himself.
What was Sean wearing at this point?
Nothing.
And you say he was touching himself. Was he masturbating?
Yes.
What do you remember happening next?
I remember things got a little more hot and heavy with me and Dawn, and we started doing like foreplay on one another.
Now, as that went on, who, if anyone, suggested that you perform oral sex on Dawn?
Sean.
And what did you do in response?
I did that.
About how long did that last?
Quite a while.
And what was Sean doing in the meantime?
Watching, talking.
What was he saying, if you can remember?
I remember he was in a positive mood, just like being encouraging and sweet.
Who, if anyone, suggested moving to the bedroom?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer.
I remember it was me who started going to the bedroom.
Why did you do that?
I was kind of ready to kind of speed things up a bit.
When you say speed things up a bit, what do you mean?
just to get it along.
What happened next?
It was time for sex.
What did you ask for before having sex with Dawn?
A condom.
How did Sean react when you asked that Dawn wear a condom?
He said like he didn't want that. He just said why? Just these guys are safe. They get tested all the time and they're some of the cleanest people and he can show you his papers and you don't have to do that.
What did you understand Sean was referring to when he said these guys get tested all the time?
At the time, I don't know, but I assumed.
I don't want you to assume. At the time, did you know what he was talking about?
No.
How did you react after Sean told you you didn't need a condom?
I was nervous at first, but then at the very last moment, Sean gives Dawn a condom.
And so then did you have sex with Dawn?
Yes.
And did he wear a condom?
Yes.
For about how long did that last?
A little while.
And how did it end?
Dawn taking the condom off and finishing on me.
What was Sean doing while you were having sex with Dawn?
Watching.
Was he saying anything or was he quiet or can you remember?
I can't remember.
No, after you had sex with Dawn, did Dawn leave?
Yes.
And what did you and Sean end up doing?
We were in a really good mood and we just started making love and he was really, really happy.
How did that night ultimately end with Sean after Dawn left?
I can't totally remember, but we were together and we were happy.
The next day, do you remember where you went?
I went home.
Now, before you went home, what, if any, boat trips do you remember taking on that same trip to Miami?
Oh, yes. After that, we actually went on a really nice yacht boat day with him and his friends.
So was that the day after you had first met Dawn?
Yes.
And what do you remember about that boat day?
It was a lot of fun. We were just all together as a group.
And then did you go home?
Yes.
Now, immediately after that night when you got home, how did you feel?
I felt exhilarated from that experience.
Can you explain why?
I felt that I had done something that I had never done before. I felt excited. I was happy. It was taboo. It was fun. I had a good time with my partner.
What did you think that night represented in your relationship with Sean?
I just took that as a night that we just did something so crazy, taboo and fun and sexy.
What did you think about whether you would do that again?
I didn't think we would be doing that again like that.
What do you mean?
I mean that after that night, I figured it was just something that we had done one time, and maybe on a random other night, maybe we would do it again. Just something taboo.
How, if at all, did your relationship with Sean change after that?
After that night, I truly felt that night just opened like a Pandora's box in our relationship. It just completely set a tone for our relationship moving forward.
What do you mean by opening Pandora's box?
I meant that it was just a door that I wasn't able to shut for the remainder of the relationship.
If you were exhilarated by the first time and were open to possibly doing it again, why did you feel like this was a door you wanted to shut?
Because it was so much of it after, and it was too much of it.
How much of your relationship did nights where you had sex with other men become with Sean after May of 2021?
Objection.
I'll rephrase.
Can you rephrase?
I'll rephrase. After that night in May of 2021, about what percentage of the time that you saw Sean did you end up having sex with another man in front of him?
90%?
Did you want that?
No.
Did you want to have sex with other men?
No.
Who did you want to have sex with?
Just Sean.
Throughout your relationship with Sean, what did you want more than anything?
Just to be with Sean.
What kinds of things did you want to do with Sean during your relationship with him?
I just wanted, as much as I could, just to have an old-fashioned type of relationship where it was just me and him, like how I met him, like how it was.
Like how it was in the beginning of 2021?
Yes.
Did you ever get back to that feeling you had in the beginning of 2021?
No.
No, at first, after the first night in May of 2021, about how long after that did Sean suggest you do that again?
I would say probably pretty quickly after.
Was it the next time you saw him?
Yes.
And how did you react when Sean suggested doing it again?
I was agreeable
And why were you agreeable?
because my partner wanted that and I just wanted to make him really happy. And I knew it turned him on and I just wanted to satisfy my partner.
So, at first, over the next few months of 2021, about how often did Sean suggest one of those nights where you had sex with another man?
All the time.
And at first, in the rest of 2021, did you go along with it?
Yes.
Why?
Because I just really loved him at this point and I just wanted to make him happy and I feared losing him. I just wanted to be everything that he wanted and I wanted our time to be special every single time. And if that made him happy, I was willing to make him happy.